Greetings and welcome to my presentation outlining my teaching philosophy. I am Andrew Davis. This presentation is for the course The Changing Face of Education in the Caribbean. In this presentation, we'll be looking at the following: the 5 teaching perspectives, have a look at my have a look at the results of my TPI test. We'll discuss my teaching philosophy in relation to the TPI test results. And finally, we'll close with a reflection slash conclusion, you know, reflecting on this assignment and the process here. So we'll start with what are the teaching perspectives? The first perspective that we'll look at is the developmental perspective. And in this perspective, there's a clear understanding and appreciation on the part of the teacher for the student's cognition in relation to the content. From here, the teacher's success is usually measured by the teacher's ability to take the students then cognitively from point A to point B, or let's say raising the students, let's say from a level of recall to synthesis, or moving from the students doing recall questions on a topic to more case studies and so on. Secondly, we look at apprenticeship. Now, apprenticeship it requires that learners perform authentic tasks within their zone of development or tasks that are appropriate for them at their age and stage. And the teachers usually provide the students with a platform to improve on or develop certain skills. As they mature and gain new competencies now, the teacher would take a step back to allow the students to find or create their own solutions. And the ultimate goal here is to have the students becoming more autonomous or self-directed beings. Third, we're looking at transmission, which has an emphasis on the mastery of content and a teacher's ability to disseminate such in a fluid and understandable way for the learners. The learner's responsibility here is to learn while the teacher makes all attempts to facilitate this through additional assignments or activities, summary documents, additional readings, and so forth. Fourth perspective here, nurturing. It assumes that long-term, hard, persistent effort to achieve you would come from the heart and not the head. And it speaks to this teacher's ability to motivate learners and providing them with a safe place to essentially try and or fail. Um, and you'd find that the teacher would have an understanding of the learner's abilities, understanding their shortcomings and create challenging but attainable goals for the learners and usually create a safe place for them to execute this. Finally, we have the social reform, which is a point of view that focuses on the holistic view of teaching that allows students to take a look at the bigger picture while gaining an understanding of the social constructs by evaluating both what is said and what is implied. Now, for all of this, we're going to look at where I fall then, or what perspectives are attributable to me as a teacher. Now, based on my results, it indicates that my dominant perspective is apprenticeship. And apprenticeship, as we can recall, deals with the teacher providing an avenue for students to work on self-direction with a view of gaining an independence and an overall competence that allows them to create learning on their own. While this spread or the profile here is closer to being flat as opposed to being differentiated. Flat being that the numbers, the totals are closer. very close. So you see where the apprenticeship is 39, and we look at this as we go, as we move through the presentation, by the way. Apprenticeship being 39, and then you have developmental 35, nurturing 34, transmission 33. We have a little dip here for social reform at the tail end being 31. Right, so it's more flat than differentiated. I can say that it speaks to my current state as a novice teacher, being cognizant of the various types of learners that I encounter in the spaces that I do occupy. I do hold a view that I am a teacher of individuals as opposed to content, and I teach students, not content, and therefore I should be flexible enough to navigate and meet the needs of each student. Though in this navigation, it doesn't take away from the fact that this is that apprenticeship, that my modus operandi is to have the students ultimately getting to a stage. But you can see where my backup perspectives then would kick in. Let's say for when I'm operating with, let's say, younger students. Now, my TPI results, what I attempted here is to break these down. So my dominant perspective, as we mentioned previously, is the apprenticeship. And the breakdown of this would be BIA, which B refers to my belief, which is 12, the intention for the I, and the A, my actions, what I usually do. And they're close. And these numbers suggest that they're almost in synergy as I attempt to create an environment can, where the students are given the opportunity to create the necessary values to become self-directed and lifelong learners. Now, similarly, when I'm evaluating this from my backup perspectives, developmental which followed, where it is concerned, these numbers definitely feed into who I believe I'm becoming as a teacher. There is an effort on my part to create a space for learners to make that transition into becoming thoughtful contributors to their learning space. Um, and, especially when I think of the four C's, or this rejuvenated push then to include the four C's in our teaching, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. There has to be, in all adolescents, some level of growth cognitively for the students, all students that is. Nurturing. Uh, Again, the perspective for me covers my need to support each students, and here I usually utilize differentiation to ensure ensure each students meets the class's performance targets. And here I would allow those who can do more to do more, while I would challenge those challenge the rest and who might have a little difficulty to rise to the occasion. Transmission, which was the lowest scoring backup perspective, then is appropriately placed when I reflect on the confidence I have in my content slash teaching. I have enough of a grasp on my content to be able to reach all students where I can explain, I can have that discussion, explanation. I can break it down for those who need to understand. And there's enough of a structure that everybody meets the class and their individual targets. Um, I had left out the social reform because for me it covers more of my views, and I believe it comes out more when I'm having informal discussions with students. And as a teacher, I'm more mindful of the impact I have on the students, and therefore I'm cautious not to cloud their views with mine. So social reform usually I would stay away from or avoid, which is probably why it scored so lowly, or scored sorry why it's so low then, or why it's considered to be my recessive perspective. Now my teaching philosophy. Now my teaching philosophy. Um, is all about creating a learning environment where students are given the opportunity to become more self-directed and lifelong learners um, with um, with some amount of autonomy. Now, this is done through the utilization of various student-centered methods and and usually against the backdrop or supported by or evaluated by a competence-based approach to their assessments while maintaining a transparent space where students can understand the how and why surrounding their learning. All of this for me is supported by the various technological aids that provides the students, based on the activity of course, different learning spaces then to apply themselves. Now, upon reflecting on the activity, and this is our conclusion, it has given me more an understanding of why I do the things I do. There is always a rationale, but to be able to tangibly break it down in this way, where it is measured, sheds a whole new light on my approach. Um, it's possible that my chats might become more differentiated as I grow in teaching, but I am satisfied where they are currently. It is possible that might apply myself, that I might apply myself broadly, and this might benefit my students. Now, of course, this is not to say that I am not thinking about the possibility of the inverse being true, where you might spread yourself too thin. But the spread as it is suits my current workspace, and based on the learner outcomes that I am exposed to, I can say that I am satisfied. And this is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for being with us, well, with me.